Welcome, everybody, to the Pistons Talk Podcast on YouTube. I'm your host, Lance Caprosi. Follow me on Twitter at Lance Caprosi. Do me a favor, follow my co-host, Anthony, at Pistons Talk. You can do that on Twitter or across all social media platforms. All right, man, let's get this started. Wednesday podcast. Got a game going on later in a few here. Let's start this off. Stanley Johnson, the former lottery pick by the Detroit Pistons, has made it clear that he would like to come back and play in Detroit. I would welcome Stanley Johnson back. I got no problem with it. He's better in a limited role, and he played pretty well for the Lakers last year. Now, he still sucked shooting. That's very clear. He's very inconsistent. I think he's at like 30% last year for the Lakers. So he's not going to be Steph Curry. He's not going to be a world beater from behind the arc, but he has great size for either forward position. He can play defense. And from what I remember, he could run in transition. And if the Pistons are going to continue to switch everything, might as well get a guy that's 6'8", can play either forward position and can play some defense. And he's still, 25 years old? I'd give him a shot in Detroit again. Why not? What about you, though, Anthony?
I think he's 25 or 26. I was actually kind of surprised, when I saw it on my timeline, because it was I think he was doing a Ask Me Anything, but I guess that's what you do when you're not playing basketball anymore, I guess. You kind of do those on a regular on Twitter, but I wouldn't hate it, but I would probably only give him a two-way contract type of deal. I wouldn't really give him, I would cut Buddy Boeheim because I think he's useless. You know that. I've been on the record. I've been on the record for that for quite some time. I would just give him a two-way deal. To your point, since we do switch everything, it would make sense to have a defensive forward that can't switch 1 through 4. But I don't know. This feels kind of taboo for Pistons fans to bring up. A guy that they had so much time invested and hopes for, and he didn't pan out. He was saying how if Troy drafted him, his career would have been different. And he went through a lot of trauma when he was young, which I don't know if a lot of Pistons fans remember. When he got drafted, his mom died 2 days later.
I remember that.
Which it was probably really hard for him to process and, still be a professional for the Pistons at that time. And then being coached by one of the hardest coaches in the NBA and Stan Van Gundy. So it was probably a lot for him to process just through that time period. But not making excuses for him, but I think he would be useful just in a bench role for this team.
So there was a quote on there that he said, love to right the wrong. What was the wrong that he's trying to right? I guess I don't remember his ending in Detroit. I didn't think it was a bad breakup. I just thought, the Pistons had cut him because he just wasn't living up to the hype of being drafted, 8th overall. But do you know what the whole right the wrong thing is about?
I have no idea. Maybe he felt maybe he wasn't utilized the right way because Van Gundy and Casey just stuck him in the corner and tried to make him a spot-up shooter. I don't know what the wrong was. Maybe he felt he didn't try his hardest during his time here in Detroit, but I would like to know what the wrong is too. I don't know.
Yeah, if there's someone in the comments or watching this right now, please feel free to share with us if you know what the answer is, because I don't know. I don't remember his time being that wrong, but maybe you're right. Maybe it was just that he wants to come back to Detroit and work harder and try to live up to the draft billing, I guess. I don't know, but I guess, are we both in agreement that it makes basketball sense to bring Stanley Johnson back?
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to win, that you're trying to compete, you're trying to, get better defensively because you're one of the worst defenses in the NBA. It would make sense defensively if that's what you want to do. You want to look at it, but it doesn't look like the Pistons are really concerned about being a good defensive team or just being a good basketball team in general right now. I think they're pretty content of where they're at.
Do you think this is kind of like a last-ditch effort for Stanley Johnson to stay in the NBA, going back to his former team, kind of begging and pleading to come back?
I think it's just an audition, honestly. I think he just wants to play basketball, not even just for the Pistons. I believe he spent time with the Lakers, spent time with the Raptors. I think he's useful in today's NBA. If you need a defender, you need, energy off the bench. But, I mean, it's kind of sad that he is out of the league. I mean, I feel like he'd be a useful player in today's NBA, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. Like I said, it makes basketball sense. He's a
Yeah.
switch forward, like you were saying, 1 through 4. He just can't shoot, but he can attack. One thing about Stanley Johnson that just pissed me off when he was in Detroit, he never wanted to dunk the basketball. He was always trying to lay it in. It's like, dude, you're 6'7", 6'8", 235, 240 pounds. You're one of the best athletes on the planet. Go over somebody. And I think that was probably more of a detriment to his career than anything else, just because it seemed like he was afraid of contact and afraid of taking it to the hole. Like he almost had like that, I don't know. It's like he was allergic to attacking the basket. That was my biggest gripe about Stanley Johnson.
I think now that we're kind of like doing our biggest gripes, I guess that's going to be the segment now.
Yeah.
My biggest gripe was development. He didn't really develop his game. And like the time he was in Detroit, like I thought that when he got drafted, he had really bad habits of going right so much that he really struggled going left. I thought that he just forced the action way too much, and like he was really predictable to guard. But that was like probably my biggest gripe with him is, development wise, I didn't really see a whole lot in his time in Detroit. And it's so funny because we were talking about Killian Hayes and number 7 overall picks a couple of weeks ago, and how a lot of later lottery picks like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, they're usually role players, but they're usually not in the league. Like I was just thinking, like Andre Drummond is barely in the NBA right now. Stanley Johnson's out. KCP's a role player, but he's a good role player. Like not every first overall pick's going to be a star player.
How good would be a Killian Hayes and Stanley Johnson matchup? Because one is right-handed, one is left-handed dominant. How good would they be if you just put them two together as one player? Are we talking about a starter in the NBA? Or are we talking about a role player still? If we matched up Stanley Johnson and Killian Hayes,
like if you combined them together,
yeah, like if they did it's a Dragon Ball Z. We fused them together, like Goku and Vegeta.
I think defensively they'd be a monster. It'd be like Marcus Smart, basically.
It would be like a super Marcus Smart, but shot 38% from the field and like 26% from 3.
Yeah, that's interesting though. But I think Killian has a little bit more upside than Stanley Johnson right now. Yeah. Especially recently, he's been playing a lot better. We haven't really had to have dialogues for 30 minutes on a podcast about him.
Yeah, I haven't even really been tweeting about Killian Hayes because, one, I never really tweeted anything negative about him. But since I've been critical of him on the podcast, I didn't want to be like that two-faced guy that starts tweeting positive things about Killian Hayes. People are like, well, you hate on him on the podcast, but then you're being positive. Like, I don't feel like I can anymore. But we can move on to news because we got some today.
For sure.
Miami Heat have made former Michigan standout Duncan Robinson available for trade. And this comes from, why did I not have the source on here?
Mike, put it in?
No, it was on me. It was Mike Escato. So Duncan Robinson, my first question to you is, would you trade for Duncan Robinson?
Probably not, just because I looked at the contract and I was like, gross. That contract is so big.
Yeah, but what's worse? His contract? No, his shooting percentage is worse. His 3-point percentage is 30% right now. The contract doesn't look that bad if he's still making 44% of his threes, which he was 3 years ago. But at 30%, yeah, that's a yucky contract. It's disgusting.
Especially when you just got Bojan for 20. Like that, as soon as he got paid, it's like he forgot how to shoot.
Yeah, I don't get it. The one thing he was brought into the NBA to do, he forgot how to do. I don't get it. It's like someone literally flipped a switch. He went from 44% to 30% in 3 years. Unbelievable.
I don't get it. Like, I was really high on him. Like before he got his deal, I thought he was one of the better 3-point shooters in the NBA, and he got paid like one too. Like he got paid like a guy that should be in the running for 6th man of the year every year, but he just he just couldn't contribute anymore. It's just, I don't know. Miami, they're really good at finding players like Duncan Robinson. I'm pretty sure I think his last name is Strauss or something like that. I mean, he's kind of taken that Duncan Robinson role, and he's performing pretty well. But I mean, the only reason why this topic scared me is because we have John Beilein on the staff, and we've been rumored to so many Michigan players, and that's kind of like the next question I wanted to ask you is, are you kind of scared that Duncan Robinson did go to Michigan? The Pistons have players that played under Beilein, like Isaiah Livers. Would you be concerned if you're a Pistons fan with Duncan Robinson being on the trading block?
Not so much, because I do think Johnny B can separate all that. I do think, though, what's nice for former Michigan players that have a connection to Beilein is that they will get an extended look from the Pistons. That's probably, I think, what mostly comes from it. I don't know if the Pistons would automatically just trade for former Michigan players just because they have that connection to a former coach. But I do think that if they're like, how we had Derek Wallen playing point guard last year, I think like those type of scenarios, if they were to rise up, you might see former Michigan players come in on a short notice just because they got someone on the staff that knows their strengths and weaknesses and knows where to put them already on the field, on the court. Maybe that's the way it works, but I don't know if they'll just go out and get Michigan players just because of that connection.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think it was shout out to Kyle Metz because he had a trade. I think it was like you put Noel, Kevin Knox, and Corey Joseph is enough to trade for Duncan Robinson. I was just like, bro, like I don't even know if the Heat would do that, but like that's just terrifying that it would take 3 player salaries to match his salary.
I'm looking at it, and again, I don't think the contract is terrible as long as he's hitting his shots. Like, I don't need him to be a world beater from behind the arc, but if you can get that thing up closer to 40%, I'm okay with the money because it would only be 2 years in Detroit, right? If they were to trade for him, it'd only be 2 more years. And then I think he has I don't know if it's a player option or a team option for that 3rd year.
Yeah, I could look up his contract right now. I'm not 100% sure what his contract even is. Let's see what he's making. He is making, so this comes from Spot Track. So he will be under contract. Sorry, my computer's really slow today.
All good.
And I don't want to see Brittany Griner. Get out of here. He'll be a UFA in 2026 at 32, and he's set to make $18 million in 2023, $19 million in 2024, and close to $20 million in 2025. So yeah, that's a big no for me, dog. I'm on Randy Jackson right now. Yeah, no, I'm out. Like, no, that's too much money for a guy that can't shoot.
Yeah, I don't know what they would. Yeah. Like I said, if he was shooting closer to 40%, I wouldn't mind it as much because floor spacing is very valuable. But at 18, 19, almost 20 million a year for a guy that's going to be, I mean, it's all in like, being 31 years old when that contract ends, not that bad in today's NBA, especially when you consider Bojan is 33, averaging 20 a game. So, yeah, it's just, again, it's a no for me as well, just because he's shooting so poorly. Like, he has no confidence in his shot. If they were to go after a 3-point sniper, though, I would love for them to find a guy like a Kevin Huerter or a Kispert, guys that even though if their shots aren't falling, like they can at least still give you help in like the rebounding department, stuff like that. So, and I feel like if Duncan, I mean, if he's not hitting his shots, what else does he provide? Even when he was hitting his shots, like that's literally all he was. He's not good.
It's not a lockdown defender. No,
he's not a strong rebounder. He doesn't create for others. He's just a shooter. And if he's not making shots, he's pretty invaluable.
See, that's what kind of scared me about it. It's like, I see this stuff all the time, and the Pistons are notorious for this, is they see a player on another team that does really well, and then they sign him on a bigger deal, or they trade for him on a bigger deal, and they try to make him play outside of his role. Like, we see it all the time. Like, if someone's a good 3-point shooter, the Pistons will try to make him a guy that can just, go to the hole and like try to make layups. Like they don't really utilize players to what they're actually brought to do. Like if Duncan Robinson was on this team, they'd probably try to make him into a point guard or something stupid like that.
They put the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
He's just running the pick and roll with Isaiah Stewart or Duran. Yeah, that'd be very Pistons, but hopefully they don't try to trade for Duncan Robinson.
Yeah, I'm praying.
So Nerlens Noel is on the trading block. Him and Alex Burks, I guess, are also trade candidates to watch closer to the deadline. Noel isn't expected to finish the season with Detroit, who Hoops Hype has learned. Burks has gotten off to a torrid start since returning to the lineup, is expected to draw interest from playoff caliber teams closer to the trade deadline. So who do you think would be traded first, Alec Burks or Nerlens Noel? I know Alec Burks is playing phenomenal, but Nerlens Noel, veteran big, when he's given the minutes, he's been known to produce. But who do you think would go first in a trade?
I think Noel would go first for like a second round pick. Like,
okay.
I don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of Nerlens Noel on the open trade market right now. I mean, the Knicks couldn't even get picks. They had to trade to the Pistons because we had cap space. I think he'd be lucky to get a second round pick. You're just looking at teams that need veteran bigs right now, or whether that's Boston. I feel like the Lakers would be interested because they're interested in everybody. Just veteran teams that are looking to compete for the playoffs that need more size in the middle.
So you're saying Nerlens Noel is more valuable than Alec Burks right now?
I wouldn't say valuable, but I think he's more likely to be traded. Something tells me that the Pistons would want more than a second round pick for Burks. I think he could field you more than a second round pick. I think you could probably get away with maybe a young asset and a pick, but I just feel like Burks or Noel is more easy to trade because I don't think the team is that invested into him because they have so many bigs with Bagley, Duran, and Stewart. Even with Stewart injured, he's not even getting minutes.
So let me ask you, you brought this up on actually a couple of podcasts that you eventually want to see Troy Weaver and the Pistons keep some of these veterans and stop just trying to flip them. Like eventually, and this is quoted, I'm quoting this from you, that you have to start building a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Alec Burks, can he be one of these foundation players for you? Or do you think he has to be traded?
I think he could be a foundation piece just of what he's shown me over the past couple of games is being a player off the bench where you're not worried where the scoring's going to come from. Like, I know some Pistons fans, because they're just sick right now, like they're comparing him to Langston Galloway already, which I think he's better than Langston Galloway. I think he's a way better player than Langston Galloway. I think he'd be a really good bench piece for this team. I know he's a little bit older. I think he's been playing for 12 years in the NBA, but I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Burks is still on the team after the trading deadline.
Yeah, it's a career year for him with 16 points, another Piston, another new player having a career year in Detroit. So I would personally love to keep him. I hate that I see his name in trade rumors, and I'm going to get really irritated when I see it closer to the trade deadline. But back to Nerlens Noel. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it'd be easier for him to trade just because, again, what you were saying, the Pistons aren't that invested in him. Like, you're right. Isaiah Stewart's not playing right now, but we're not seeing a bigger, we're not seeing a lot more minutes for Nerlens Noel right now. They'd rather go Duran and Bagley and probably try some other things. So, yeah, Nerlens Noel will probably be the easiest to trade. And I hope they do get him out of Detroit because, I don't know, there's something about a guy that I think that can still play that isn't getting minutes on a team that just kind of irritates me. So I'd rather see him in a new place playing than sitting on the bench in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, he's unhappy. I don't know if I think it was the picture of him whispering in Marvin Bagley's ear. It's probably I'll have to send it to you. It's so funny. People are having fun with it, saying, I'm out of here soon. Like, I'm getting traded or I'm getting waived or whatever. But I really thought he would have brought a veteran leadership to this team. Like, it just kind of shows you where, like, you can kind of read the tea leaves in terms of veterans and their playing time. Like, if the Pistons were trying to win, Noel would be averaging 30 minutes a game.
You think so?
Oh, 100%. I think he's a veteran that, like, if the Pistons were really trying to win, Burks, Noel, and Bogey would all be in the starting lineup.
All right. I agree with that. I don't got much more to say on Noel because I don't know like what trades are out there for him, like what team we can go for, what we can net. So, but Nerlens Noel, he's on the trading block. I'm just gonna end it with this: like his tenure in Detroit, it's been lackluster. It's probably something. It'll probably be. I'll probably look back in 10 years and completely forgot that Nerlens Noel played in Detroit until I see like an old roster, like 10 years from now. You're like, oh, I forgot he was here. He didn't do anything.
It'll be like random Pistons of the day.
Yep, exactly. And then we got one more final piece of news, and it's Pistons taking calls on Saddiq Bey. Oh, this is crazy. Bey will become extension eligible this summer and has had a noticeable drop in production. Detroit has taken early calls on Bey from inquiring teams. Sources said a change in behavior from recent trade windows, but it seems the Pistons are intent on further evaluating Bey before truly entertaining his trademark. And that comes from Jake Fisher, I believe, right? Jake Fisher.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to say this. I'm surprised at how quickly Pistons fans had flipped the script because during draft time, I had tweeted out that the Pistons, would you be upset if the Pistons traded Saddiq Bey to the Kings in order to draft Keegan Murray and Jaden Ivey? And I felt like Pistons fans were up in arms and didn't want to see it. But now when this rumor is coming out, it seems like more Pistons fans are in favor of trading Saddiq Bey. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, my whole timeline right now is just Pistons fans overreacting to a tweet from a guy that I don't want to say Jake Fisher doesn't have sources because I'm sure he does, but he hasn't been the most accurate. I will say that.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of just calm Pistons fans down. The Pistons are taking calls on every player on the roster right now. They're 4-15. They just decided to put Saddiq Bey's name out there. Every team, every GM takes calls on every single player. You'd be surprised how much a GM's phone rings throughout the year of taking calls on players. Like, you can take a call on players. Like, just because you're taking a call on players doesn't mean you're going to trade them. Like, yeah, they took a call on Saddiq Bey. They're seeing what the market is. Like, if someone offered them a first-round pick for Saddiq Bey right now, he'd be traded.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just Pistons fans overreacting. Like, oh, we're trading Saddiq Bey. Well, if the Pistons trade him, I hope, Saddiq Bey haunts them. It's just like Pistons fans just get so emotionally, I don't want to say, like, just this time of year, they get, like, really
attached.
Yeah, it's just that they get really upset.
Yeah.
And I can understand it. From here until February, it's going to be a miserable time if you're a Pistons fan and you're attached to a player on this team like a Saddiq Bey, like an Isaiah Stewart, a Killian Hayes, because you're probably going to see their names in trade rumors for the next couple of months. I mean, it's trade rumor season. They're called rumors for a reason. 90% of the time, they're not true. The trades that we talk about never happen. The trades that do happen, they surprise us from left field. No one thought the Pistons were going to trade for Blake Griffin. We never heard about it. Like, the trades that do happen, you never hear about.
So you're not worried at all about Bey being traded?
I don't think he gets traded. I think he's on this team after the deadline. I just think that the Pistons are just looking at the whole roster. They're taking calls. They're seeing what changes they could possibly make. I mean, it doesn't help that Tom Gores, did get an interview with the Detroit News, I believe. And he thought that this team's record was better than they're playing at right now. And I think we both agree that this team should have more than 4 wins. I think arguably they could have 7 wins. I think there are a couple games that just got away from them. I thought the Sacramento game, they just completely just tanked it out. Like, they should have beat the Kings. I mean, they were beating the Kings basically all night. They were competing with them. And Casey just, white flag, just the lineup at the end. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? It's the best offensive team in the league, and you're just going to wave the white flag.
So what kind of trade package, though, for Saddiq Bey would make you pull the trigger?
If I were to get a rotational player or a high draft pick, I would pull the trigger. But I just don't see teams willing to part with the first round draft pick in this year's draft.
Yeah.
And rotational player that, like, you look at Saddiq Bey's draft, like, you think the Grizzlies are trading Desmond Bane for Saddiq Bey? No. You think Philly's trading Tyrese Maxey for Saddiq Bey? No. Like, you're not going to get a whole lot for Saddiq Bey, and this is where Pistons fans do themselves of the service. They overvalue their players. Like, I remember when Andre Drummond got traded, people thought that we were getting a first round pick for Andre Drummond, and we got a second round pick that we eventually didn't even use, and some salary filler. Like, Saddiq Bey's on a rookie contract. Like, for him to get traded, it's probably going to be multiple players getting traded. Like, I see some people say, oh, maybe we can trade Bogey and Saddiq for John Collins. Like, if I'm a Pistons fan, that doesn't excite me at all.
Really? Even, I mean, are you, man, I don't even know what to ask about Saddiq Bey. My biggest fear is they hold on to him too long and it turns into like similar to an Andre Drummond situation where they don't get what we thought we could get for him. Like, I mean, the trade for when the Pistons traded Andre Drummond, it was just a desperation move. It was just trying to clean the books. They didn't really care what they got. They were going full rebuild. And even if they had probably been more patient, they could have got more for Andre Drummond. My biggest fear is they hold on to Saddiq Bey too long. Like, I thought, this past offseason, Saddiq Bey's value never would have been higher. And I thought that was the time to pull the trigger on a trade for him. Just because, I don't know. I just never thought that for Saddiq Bey, the ceiling was that high as a player. And I just thought he was just going to reach his peak a lot sooner than what other people thought. And I don't know. I don't want to say I'm right, but he definitely has dropped in production and efficiency.
He has, but I know if he does get traded, let's just say we'll play devil's advocate. He gets traded, he's probably going to average 20 points a game as a role player and be a player that Pistons fans put in the same category as Middleton and Dinwiddie. Because the Pistons, they don't know how to develop talent, and that's clear. Like, name me a player that they have developed over the last 10 years. Oh, wait, they haven't.
Let me play devil's advocate, though, real quick. What if Saddiq Bey is closer to Luke Kennard than Chris Middleton? Like, the Luke Kennard trade was good because Luke Kennard basically had, I think you got more than top dollar for Luke Kennard in that trade. But I'm just saying, like, Saddiq Bey, he could be averaging 16 points in Detroit because the talent's not there. But then you put him on the Clippers, he's averaging like 9 points because, he's playing behind Paul George, Kawhi, and whoever else is on that team. It depends on what team he goes to. If he goes to Charlotte and he plays there, yeah, he might average 20 points a game. But if you send him to the Clippers, he's probably averaging like 10 or 11. I think it really depends on Saddiq Bey, what kind of team, what kind of role he's going to be getting, where he's going to be going. I think Saddiq Bey is going to be fine no matter where he goes, but the type of environment is going to give you the type of player Saddiq Bey is.
I mean, you trade him to Dallas, there's no doubt in my mind he'd average 15 points right now.
Yeah, that might be a good situation for him, but yeah, maybe. I don't know. Luka's kind of weird though. Like, I don't know. you like Saddiq Bey, like on paper, it seems like he would fit perfectly in Dallas, but I don't know. Sometimes it just doesn't work that way playing next to Luka. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're right about Saddiq Bey. Some places he's going to average a lot of points, and some places he's going to be like Luke Kennard.
Yeah, I mean, this is also something that I did want to bring up because we did get we were getting a lot of comments about this topic, and deservedly so because I did clickbait the fuck out of this title, so I do apologize for the YouTube audience for that. But we do get a question from Through and Three Locked. If you are listening live on YouTube, we always welcome you guys to drop comments during segments, and we will put some of these on the screen as we're doing topics. 313 Locked had a comment saying, but do we want to pay Bey $20 million a year? Because he does have an extension. I don't even think he gets $15 million a year with an extension with the Pistons.
But I think some team is going to pay him more than the Pistons. Like, I think realistically, like, well, what did Marvin Bagley get? He got 11 million,
12 million.
12 million. I think that's fair for Saddiq Bey. But I don't know. Saddiq Bey might give him. I don't want to pay Saddiq Bey 20 million, especially the way he's playing right now. I don't want to pay him 20 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's around that 10 to 12 million. I think that's what he'll get. I don't think you look at players like Isaiah Stewart, you look at players like Bey, they're, extension eligible this offseason. Like, I don't think they're going to get the bag. Like, they haven't really produced enough for where the Pistons should feel threatened to throw them 20 million. To 3-win 3 locks point or his comment. I just don't think so. I mean, like, if Saddiq was, giving you a 50 piece like every couple of games, then yeah, sure. I mean, you'd freaking max them out. But I think Pistons fans should feel pretty safe to where you don't really have to extend them that much money to keep them, because at the end of the day, Killian, Saddiq, Isaiah Stewart, they've just kind of been in a starting position, but on a good team, they'd be a role player.
I would say that Isaiah Stewart has the best chance to start even on like a contending team, just because he brings more to the table in terms of being a defensive player, a rebounder, and all that stuff. But if Saddiq Bey averaged, say, 15, let's say his stats stay the same. He's averaging 15 points, 5 rebounds. We'll throw 2 assists in there and a steal because we're rounding up. And he was shooting closer to like 35% from 3. Would you feel more comfortable about giving him a contract closer to 20 million a year?
I think if he was doing everything he was doing now and his 3-point percentage was around 35%, then yes. I think if he was driving the basket to the hole, at a high rate, hitting his 3-point shots, didn't make so many mental errors, then yeah. I mean, I think all of us, Pistons fans included, would be campaigning for him to be a most improved candidate. But like I said, he's had a really bad year from 3. He's getting run off the 3-point line. It's probably a really hard adjustment to play with Bogdanovic, who, I don't want to say he's hurt his development, but it's made it more difficult for him to play because Bogdanovic moves so well without the ball, where Saddiq really hasn't learned that art of the game yet. So I think that's a big thing that a lot of Pistons fans just don't talk about, is Bogdanovic's role and how Cade and Jaden Ivey and even Killian, to an extent, look for Bogdanovic, because it seems like Bogdanovic is always in the right place at the right time, or, if the ball isn't in his hands, he looks to cut, or he looks for a screen, or he just looks for an opening to get the ball. And Saddiq doesn't do that.
So don't you think that's more of a detriment, though, to Saddiq Bey, where it seems like, because we kind of had this problem last year with Jeremy Grant, if you remember, when they were both on it seemed like Saddiq Bey disappeared. So isn't that more of a problem on Saddiq Bey? Like, shouldn't we be concerned that he can't play or fit in with better players? Because how is this team supposed to improve if we're giving money to a player and giving a role to a player and minutes to a player that can't play with other players? Like, how are the Pistons supposed to get better if they have one player in the team that has talent and has potential but can't make it work with other guys because, they might be taking some shots away from them? That just doesn't make sense for for Saddiq Bey. That just seems like it doesn't seem like a player I really want to invest in, because I don't know. I don't want to be concerned about Saddiq Bey just not getting his numbers. Like, he should be able to do other things on a basketball floor than just shoot the ball.
I think moving him to the 4 would actually fix a lot of his issues that he's having right now.
Yeah, but
I think if you move him to power forward, it kind of hides a lot of the stuff that he can't do. Because when you put him on small forwards that are really athletic and they're a lot faster, quicker, it shows what he's limited defensively. It shows like what he can do offensively. I think if you move him to the power forward position, I think he's big enough to guard power forwards, and he doesn't have to be the fastest guy on the court. And if you look statistically, he's had some of his best games playing the power forward position. Now, it kind of derails what the Pistons want to do long term with Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren, but even when he was coming off the bench, we actually saw him be more productive.
Yeah. Well, he got, I don't know if you remember when we were talking about the Boston Celtics game. Boston had put Al Horford, got him in some positions where he was posting up Saddiq Bey. Saddiq Bey could not handle Al Horford in the post. I think the best move for Saddiq Bey is to continue to come off the bench where you can be a matchup nightmare for some guys. Offensively, Saddiq Bey at the 4 makes a ton of sense because he's going to be able to beat a lot of 4s off the dribble. But defensively, he can't handle them in the post. Like, he's not – his best defense is, just – I don't even know. Like, just trying to just stay in front of your guy. Like, I don't know what happened from his rookie year to now where he just became a negative defender. Like, he looked like such a positive defender his rookie year, but now it doesn't seem like he even wants to play defense. So I think the best course of action is to bring him off the bench. I like him at the 4 on offense, but defensively, I don't know. I just think that might cause a lot of problems for him.
I think it's a confidence issue too. I think you look at his rookie year, he really didn't hit a rookie wall. Like him and Isaiah Stewart, like they just came out guns blazing. Like they never hit the rookie wall. Like they just played so damn well. I look at Marcus Morris and Tobias Harris when they were on the Pistons. I don't know if you remember this. Okay. They were both small forwards, and Marcus Morris played the 4, Tobias played the 3. And sometimes they were interchangeable. They would switch up. I think Saddiq could play that. And I think if the Pistons kind of went towards that role of having Bogey at the 3 and Saddiq at the 4, I think it would make more sense because I think Bogey is more of a natural small forward anyways. I don't really think he's a 4. I think he can play with the small forwards in today's NBA. But I still look at a confidence issue with him. I just think that, that when that 3-point shot isn't falling, he just doesn't seem like he's the same player. But when it is falling, he seems like he's more confident. He plays better on both ends of the floor. But I'm still invested in him. I am. The comps that I did compare him to in the beginning of the year, I still have those comps. I just think right now it's a consistency thing. And once he puts more games together, I think that Pistons fans won't be as, impatient as they are right now because they see this Jake Fisher reporting and they think that we're going to trade him for a bag of Skittles.
Remember when we thought that's all Killian Hayes could get to the Pistons? It was just a bag of candy.
Yeah.
Who has more value right now on the trade market, Killian Hayes or Saddiq Bey?
Probably Saddiq Bey.
Still Saddiq Bey?
Yeah, I think a lot of teams during the draft wanted Saddiq Bey, and I think they still do because they kind of look at the Pistons and they're like, well, we can use Saddiq Bey in a simplified role and he would produce. And they just kind of look at the way the Pistons are using him, and they're just probably like shaking their head like, no, man, like you need to just have him be a 3-and-D wing. Like, what are you doing trying to make him become a guy that just goes to the basket like 90% of the time? Like, I think if he just simplified his role, we wouldn't be having these conversations.
Yeah, it kind of stinks that they really they were forcing him the ball in his hands more and trying to get him to create shots when he really should have just been learning how to relocate without the ball and learning how to play off of Cade and Jaden Ivey instead of trying to be like Cade and Jaden Ivey. So Saddiq Bey, I'm still rooting for him, but I'm glad the Pistons have wised up and are now actually taking calls and seeing what the interest is from other teams because Saddiq Bey has value and it might be on the open trade market more than it is being on the Pistons. Who knows?
Yeah, you can look back. Sacramento was calling the Pistons about Saddiq Bey for Marvin Bagley. Like, that's what I kind of want to, like, get this whole message across for this podcast is every team calls about every player on every NBA team. Like, the fact that NBA Central and Jake Fisher decided to, like, put this out, this shows you how bored fans are right now during this NBA season.
Yeah, the Pistons probably get Harrison Barnes right now for Saddiq Bey. That's probably like the best you could get for him.
I would punch my wall. I do not want Harrison Barnes on this team. It's like a worse version of Josh Smith right now.
Dude, it's like the poor man's Tobias Harris, the poorer version of Tobias Harris. So we got some injuries. I was wondering about Saddiq Bey. So he has a ankle injury. Head coach Dwayne Casey said Monday that Bey flew back to Detroit to receive treatment for a sprained right ankle, signaling that the forward won't be available for the remaining 3 contests of the Pistons' 3-game road trip. This is reported by James Edwards III of The Athletic, if you don't know that already. Yeah, Saddiq Bey, ankle injury. He'll be back after this week, though, right?
We may see him. I think we play the Cavs at home to end the week. Maybe we'll see him then.
Okay, cool.
If possible, but I think it made sense for him to, go back home, get treatment on that ankle because he's actually never missed a game in his 3rd season with the Pistons. So I think that kind of shows you how tough he is as an individual. And I was going back. I mean, he hasn't missed a game since high school.
Oh, really? That's how far back it goes?
Yeah, he hasn't missed a game since high school, freshman year. He's played a lot of basketball. Definitely an Iron Man for sure.
That is impressive. That is very, very impressive. Well, I hope he comes back, and I hope he just starts playing like his normal self again. Cade Cunningham, we're going to give you an update. Lower leg is feared to have suffered a stress fracture in his shin, will be sidelined indefinitely. James L. Edwards, the third of The Athletic, reports that as well. We did get a video, though, of Cade shooting jumpers in Sacramento where a lot of non-Pistons fans were like, dude, what the hell is this? Are they tanking for Victor Wembanyama right now? Someone needs to call the league and report the Pistons. I don't know what was up with Cade Cunningham, but he was definitely warming up in Sacramento. I was hoping that video was old, but he had the beard, so you know it was new. I don't know if it's the Pistons or whatever, but whatever this injury is to Cade, it doesn't seem to be that serious. I think it's shin splints, which suck, and they just go away with stress. But I don't know. Maybe don't be warming up when there are cameras and cell phones present.
Yeah, a lot of people pointed out that it was kind of like an overreaction. They're like, dude, Chet Holmgren shoots around every game and he's out for the season. Yeah, it's just I don't know that Kings beat reporter just found the need to take a picture and then take a video from afar, which, I mean, you can tell Cade could be sitting home right now. He could just not be with the team, but he's with the team every day. Cade wants to play. And I think right now it's just a discomfort level. That's what they said yesterday on the Valley Sports broadcast. Johnny Kane and Greg Kelser were saying it's just a discomfort level right now with him. And, he's just kind of weighing all his options because he doesn't want to have season-ending surgery. He wants to play. But if he were to have surgery, he would be out for the rest of the year because it takes around 60 games or so for that surgery to between rehab and, getting back to normal. And we're 20 games into the season, so he would most likely not be ready until May. And I think we can both agree Pistons won't be playing in May.
No, and I told you on the last podcast, if he really does need surgery, let's get the surgery done now. I'd rather have him have the surgery and just get healthy for next season. Just if the season really is over for Cade, the season really is over. Let's just make it official and let him have the surgery. But that reporter that reported, do you think there was a part of him where he's like, yeah, I'm saving the NBA. These Pistons, they're doing something wrong. I'm going to turn them in. I'm turning them in. We're taking this first round pick.
The Kings?
Yeah, the Kings reporter. He's like, yeah. Especially with all did you see that Reddit message from Sacramento Kings fans where they were like, I hope we show no mercy when we beat the Pistons or something like that?
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm going to try to find it.
Sacramento fans want a rivalry with Detroit so bad, and I don't understand why. I just don't get it. Because we clowned you for taking Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey, we weren't the only franchise clowning you for taking Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey. All 29 other teams in the NBA were. I don't get it. Yeah, you're having success, the most wins you've had since 2005, but I just don't get why Kings fans are so obsessed with Pistons fans. It's just baffling to me. I did see that Reddit message. They were treating this Pistons game like it was for the NBA championship, and they won, and they were just flexing. I was just like, you guys have lost so much, you don't even know how to like when you win, you don't know how to act.
But aren't you kind of excited though that we have a rivalry with another fan base, just a little bit?
Not that fan base.
Yeah,
Like I want a rivalry back with like Chicago or Indiana or Boston or the Lakers, not the Kings. Like really? Like win a playoff game and then talk to me.
Yeah, and I don't know what else it is with the Kings. Are they mad that we got Corey Joseph?
No, they're still obsessed with Bagley, and I don't get it. They're so obsessed with Marvin Bagley. Like, I have a buddy of mine who he texted me, and he does cover the Kings, and I haven't talked to him probably since the summer when we were doing like draft stuff.
Yeah.
And he saw that Marvin Bagley was in the starting lineup, and he texted me. And it's even the media. They don't like Marvin Bagley. I'm like, dude, like, get over it. Like, you drafted Marvin Bagley. It didn't pan out. It's your fault. Bad ownership. You've been irrelevant for the past 10 to 15 years. Like, I just don't know what to tell you. Like, we have Marvin Bagley. We use him as a sixth man, a starter, whatever. We're happy with him. Like, you don't see Pistons fans shitting on Marvin Bagley the way Kings do. Like, Kings fans were actually booing him when he was on the court.
Oh, and I remember. I could not I don't know why. Like, even when you're trying to explain it to me, it just doesn't make any sense. Kings fans are just hurt. They just want a relevant basketball team. Just be happy with, a playoff appearance, guys. That's all you're getting this year. You're not going any further than that. Dude, they really think that they're going to go far with Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, Herter, Keegan Murray, and I don't know who else is in their starting lineup. They don't play defense. The team sucks. They're not going to go that far. I said it, Kings fans.
You just wait till you play a defensive team. Like, honestly, like
everybody.
It's not going to go well. I know, like, they were. I don't know if you saw what John Morant tried to do to Malik Monk the other night. That was freaking hilarious.
I did not see that.
Malik Monk's at the free throw line, and John Morant taps him on the shoulder and says, "Hey, don't miss." Nails them both. John Morant has an opportunity to win the game, and he clucks the free throw, and the Kings won.
Oh my gosh! I mean, Kings, man, they're feeling it. I want to say that I'm happy for the fan base, but I really thought that message was just so unnecessary, Kings fans. If you want a fan, like, I even almost tweeted out that I should be watching De'Aaron Fox more, and I want to do it. But then I saw that message, and I was like, dude, fuck Kings fans, man. I'm not trying to show any support or no love to that team. Never.
No,
you gained an enemy.
Literally, like, I hope they freaking get relocated to Seattle.
No, because then I have to root for him, and I don't want to do that.
No, you don't.
No.
They probably won't even be the Supersonics anymore. It'll probably be something really stupid.
The lame Sonics, the Seattle lame Sonics. Yeah, I hope it is something stupid if the Kings go there. Final piece of injury news. Isaiah Stewart's right big toe. Stewart has been diagnosed with a right big toe sprain and will be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reports. We also have another piece of news of this. He just got assigned to the G League. And if you were following Pistons Talk, you would have gotten that update. So you should. So you get those updates.
Yeah, so he's going to be rehabbing with them, which makes sense because Detroit is in Utah tonight. So he's just going to be working out with them. Don't expect him to play and get 50 rebounds with the Crews. It's probably not going to happen. Fans get so weird every time a player gets hurt and they rehab with the G League. Like, I just don't get it. Like, Chris Middleton has been with their G League team for 3 weeks, and no one is like freaking out about it. Like, he's just working out with them. That's it. Like, that's all.
It's a chance for video game numbers, Anthony. Like, how are we not going to root for Isaiah Stewart? Did you see what Dwight Howard did in China? I want to see Isaiah Stewart do that in the G League.
Dwight Howard did that in China, and DeMarcus Cousins like, hold my beer, I'm coming too. I don't know if you saw that. I guess Boogie Cousins is going over to Taiwan too to play in the same league as Dwight Howard.
Dude, but why not? I mean, it's cool to sit on the bench in the NBA, but I mean, I would rather play averaging 50 and 25 over in China. That's so much more fun than sitting on the bench in the NBA.
For sure. Just don't pull a Ty Lawson and they'll love you over there.
Dude, just be Stephon Marbury, dude. I mean, he got a statue. I'm not sure what Ty Lawson did. I forget.
You don't remember?
No, I don't remember what he did in China.
Oh, God.
Was it bad? I mean, obviously it's bad if you're laughing at it.
To the Chinese fans and like their basketball association, they got really offended because he went to a strip club and he was like on his Instagram like saying like how he had yellow fever and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah, what a moron, dude.
I think the funniest part was like him taking pictures with Chinese strippers and putting it on his Instagram.
What was funnier, Paul Pierce going live when he got fired from ESPN or Ty Lawson doing what he did in China?
Oh, Paul Pierce for sure.
Dude, the Paul Pierce one was funny. Dude, he was so wrecked. It was just so funny.
He didn't give a shit.
No, he did not at all. That was amazing from Paul Pierce. Do we have any questions from the people watching on YouTube?
Yeah, I did start a couple of them that we did get. I do want to just scroll up because there were a lot of comments during the Bay segment, and I just want to see if there were any questions maybe I did miss. Let's see. Doesn't really look like it, but if you guys do have any questions, you guys know what to do. Just drop them in the comments section and we will put them on the screen and we can have topics about it. So this question comes from Benjamin Foe, and it's about Troy Weaver, which I haven't really seen too many fans complain about Troy Weaver unless it's on Facebook, because Pistons fans on Facebook are just miserable human beings. I just don't understand it. But the question is, when/will Troy Weaver be on the hot seat? On the hot seat.
I don't know. Never. He would. I don't even know what you have to do as a GM to really be put on the hot seat. I mean, who does he have to sign? What kind of contract is it out there? I don't know. I mean, I don't know really. Like, maybe if he doesn't get the Pistons over the hump or get him into the playoffs in the next couple of seasons, then he'll be on the hot seat. But I don't know how you really evaluate a GM, because like his job is just evaluating, drafting, and signing to see who fits it out, and then he's basically turning them over to the coaches. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I really don't know when a GM goes on the hot seat.
So I liked what you said when you said what move would put him in the hot seat. And I think there's one player, if he traded for, I think a lot of fans would want him on the hot seat, and that is trading for Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, that would be. What is that really a move though that would put Troy Weaver on the hot seat?
I don't think it would put him on the hot seat, but I think among fans it would put him on fans would be disappointed if that would happen.
Yeah, but even if we see Russell Westbrook, like I know there's a lot of complaints about him, but he is coming off the bench in Los Angeles. Russell Westbrook as your sixth man, that's not that bad for Detroit, right? Like that's not that bad of a move.
I mean, at $30 million, I mean, it's kind of.
That part sucks.
I just think like people just put the two and two together since they were together in OKC, and I saw this crazy mock trade where like the Pistons would basically give up Noel, or not. I think it was like Noel, Burks, and Bogey to the Lakers for Westbrook or some like crazy trade. Like it was like a fan trade. It was like that will never happen. But
God, I hope it never does.
No, it would like send like Kyrie to the Lakers, and it was like a 3-team trade. Like, why would the Pistons do that? Would not benefit them at all. But to Ben's question, I think if he were to sign players to like big deals, that would put him on the hot seat. But so far, we really haven't seen him sign players at like a really high price. Like I think the biggest contract we've seen is like Jeremy Grant and Bogdanovich so far at $20 million. Like he hasn't really gone after he hasn't made like a Van Gundy move, where like he mortgages the future for a player. Like he hasn't done that yet. And I don't even think he has the draft capital, the assets to do that right now.
And really, even some of the moves that were kind of like head scratchers when they were first happened, in hindsight, and I mean, they really worked out for the Pistons. He knows what he's doing, Like, I'm trying to think of a player that like the Christian Wood thing. Like, we all thought that was a stupid trade at the time, but it worked out and it benefited us greatly. So I don't know. It'd be really hard for me to put Troy Weaver on the hot seat because I feel like he's done such a great job as a GM for the Detroit Pistons. Like I have not had this much confidence in a GM in a really long time for the Pistons.
Yeah, probably the only trade I wasn't too happy with was the Bruce Brown one. That was the one trade where I was like, you trade for a guy that barely played any NBA minutes for a guy that you saw him last night in Denver. I mean, he still has a lot of game. He's developed his handle a lot. Like him and Jokic were running some 2-man stuff last night, and he looked really good. But I mean, a lot of people were saying like, well, would you rather have Killian Hayes or Bruce Brown? Because it's the same player.
I'd take Bruce Brown just because he's a better 3-point shooter. I always thought they made that trade for Bruce Brown because I thought that, he might have won them a few games and kept them out of contention for like a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I mean, he could have, but I mean,
it's just because he hustled so hard, I mean, I don't know why they traded Bruce Brown. It sucks. I thought he was a fun player, man. And really, when you watch Cade, he probably would have fit really well with Cade. It would have been a lot of fun, man. But that might be the worst trade that he's made.
But that's my only complaint. Like one trade out of how many trades that he has made. Like I'm only upset with one trade. So my faith in him is very strong. I think he's a good GM. I think when he got here, he had contracts that were untradeable, like Blake Griffin, and he had to buy him out. But I think this was the first year where he actually had clean cap space. And we're going to see what he can do with up to potentially $60 million this summer. So I think you just have to stay patient and trust in Troy.
I do too. Now, man, now I'm looking at Bruce Brown's numbers. Fuck. I hate that. 11, 4, and 4, 47% from the field, 39% from 3, 84% from the charity stripe. And all we got was fucking Musa.
He was killing it over in Europe.
Is he killing? I want to hear that. Is it true? Is he killing it over in Europe?
He's probably averaging like 2 points.
Oh, you don't even know. I thought you actually knew.
I can look it up if he's even playing. I doubt it.
I type in Musa and you would think his name would pop up. It doesn't. Oh, no, Musa Nets. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't even know if he's even playing right now.
His last game against Valencia, he had 28 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. Game before that, 10 points. Game before that, 9 points. Regular season, 5 points.
Okay, yes. He's actually killing it. He had 28 points yesterday.
Yeah, against Valencia.
Yeah.
He's only averaging 5 on the season, so it's an anomaly.
And his last 5 games, he's actually playing pretty well. So, I mean, 16, 9, 10, and 14, and 28. So, I mean.
Look, the Pistons the Pistons did what they had to do. You have to take the chance on a 6'9", 220-pound shooting guard drafted in the first round for Bruce Brown. You have to take a chance on him. That's what they did. Didn't work out.
Okay, so I found the league that he's playing in right now. He averaged 20 points last year, 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists for Team Rio over in Spain. And then he's playing for Real Madrid, and he's averaging 16 points, 2.5 rebounds, and almost 3 assists a game. So, I mean, he's killing it over in Europe, but I mean, I think most fans would like to have Bruce Brown on this basketball team. That's just, I don't think they wanted to pay him though either.
Who would you rather? Never mind. We won't get into
that. All right. We'll get to another question. This isn't really a question, but I thought it was an interesting topic because we kind of live in today's NBA where we see rookies play more minutes than I think we have probably in the last 5 to 10 years. So Johnny on the spot said in the old days, rookies would come off the bench and learn from the vets.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of things like coaching philosophy, and then what kind of team do you have, but also what kind of rookie is coming in, because there are some rookies that are day one players. So it's hard. I mean, I would hate if I'm watching Jaden Ivey and he's producing, but he still comes off the bench in a limited role. I would hate that. And I've always kind of hated that about the Pistons, regardless of it always seemed like they drafted or signed coaches that never wanted to play young players. And I always thought that was a problem because, I mean, if you're not going to play young guys, why would people want to come here anyways? Because it's, in my mind, when you have a coach like that and, you're a young player and you're putting in all this work, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, no matter what you do, you're going to come off the bench. It sets a bad precedent. It's just not good for your team. So, yeah, in the old days, I guess it would work that way, but I don't know. I'm sure throughout history, you can just look and see guys throughout every class. There's always at least a couple day one starters or day one players.
Yeah, I mean, I even look at Tayshaun Prince when he was drafted. He didn't play his whole first year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he didn't play at all. He just, sat on the bench. But I think it's interesting from Johnny. I do think that, even 5 years ago, you really didn't see rookies get the type of minutes that they get now. But I think what has changed is the social media age, players having more of a voice, because I think the NBA has been more of a players' league probably over the last 5 years more than anything, because you see so many, star players, whether it's like Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Trae Young, they have voices out there and they're going to, be heard. I mean, even Zach LaVine got benched the other night and he called out his coach. And now, there's news circles about, are the Bulls going to fire Billy Donovan? Players just have such a strong voice nowadays. And I think that's why you don't really see too many rookies, high level rookies, like lottery picks, come off the bench anymore.
Well, also the skill level of young guys coming in is just phenomenal. But also the NBA is a much younger league than it was back in the day, where, you're probably, I think at one point the NBA's average age was 33 years old. And I think now it's closer to 27, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they ever did change that rule or not, because it used to be you'd have to do 1 year of high school and then you could, or 1 year of college, and then you could come into the NBA. I think Adam Silver and the NBA are going to change that, where you can come straight out of high school into the NBA.
Yeah, I think even back further, though, I thought once you had gone into college, you had to wait 2 or 3 years before you could go to the NBA, because you weren't technically, I don't know when it changed. I don't know if it was the 80s or the 70s, but I know at one point you could not play varsity sports in college if you were a freshman. You had to be on the freshman team. So guys like Pistol Pete and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, they technically only got to play 3 years of college ball, but they did play 4 years, but one of the years didn't really count as anything because they were on a freshman team. It's weird.
That's so stupid. It reminded me of, I know this isn't basketball related, but I remember there was a punter this year. I think he was 33 and he still had eligibility left. He was the oldest player in college football, and he's a 33-year-old punter.
Yeah, that happened to a linebacker in the MAC conference a few years ago too. He was a veteran, and I don't know if he played for Western Michigan or Buffalo, but he was in his 30s as well. And then there was that Nate Boyer guy. He was the long snapper for the Texas Longhorns, and he did 4 tours of deployment over in Iraq, and then he ends up signing a contract with the Seattle Seahawks. And I think he was in his 30s when he made his pro sports debut. It's unreal, dude.
It's crazy. We do have a question from Grandpa OCE, cool YouTube name. Do you think the case has been? Do you think Case has been entrusted to lose games for draft picks, or is he just bad? So he's asking, do you think Dwayne Casey is being told to blow these games, or he's just a bad coach?
I don't want to get the Pistons in trouble, so I'm going to go and say Casey's just doesn't have enough talent to win in Detroit. That's what I'll say.
I think if Casey was trying to win, I said it earlier, you would have more vets playing longer roles and longer minutes on this team. But I think the Pistons' goal this year has been development. And if that means that they win some games, cool. If it means they're losing games, they're cool with it. I don't think Casey has been entrusted to lose games, because if he really wanted to lose games, if he really wanted to get fired, you know how many minutes Corey Joseph would average?
Yeah.
A game? Like Corey Joseph would like get more minutes than like Killian Hayes or Jaden Ivey for that matter. Like I think that they're just trying to develop like it, and it's just not translating to wins right now. And I think that's what fans kind of look at it. They look at the lineups. Like there's a lineup the other night, I believe it was against the Nuggets in to end the second quarter. It was he put Jalen Duren out there with Hamid Diallo, Kevin Knox, and I can't Corey Joseph and a couple others. Like there was like no floor spacing and just like a bunch of bench guys. And Pistons fans are like, "Oh wow, Dwayne Casey's waving the white flag in the second quarter already." Like I think it's just developing at the end of the day. I don't really think he's purposely trying to lose. He's just trying to develop talent and give everyone a fair chance.
Yeah, that's all I think it is too. And I mean, yeah, I just think it's a lack of talent for the Pistons, and that's why they're losing. But I do think it's more like what Anthony's saying. It's more just about development this year, and that's why you're going to see a lot of losses this year. I just don't think you can just always blame Coach Casey for it. He's coaching a young team. There's going to be a lot of mistakes, man.
So we do have a question from Banks. I know he was on the last live stream on, God, when was our last live stream? Saturday?
Yes, sir.
God, man, these days are flying by. Banks asks, what mold do you want to see the Pistons be like? I can't talk. What mold do y'all want to see the Pistons be built like to be contenders? Cav, Memphis, or Boston?
I would say more in the realm of Cavs or Memphis, just because I feel like when they lose, like for example, when the Cavs lost Darius Garland, they were still a really competitive team. And when Memphis lost Ja Morant, they're still a really competitive team. But when I don't know, I guess Boston's still pretty competitive, but it just seems like they are so reliant on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown that if one of those guys goes down, their season's completely over. At least that's the way it feels like. Maybe someone would step up. I don't watch a lot of Boston basketball, but I have seen enough games from the Cavs and the Grizzlies to know that those guys they're still good teams even without their star players. And I'd rather see the Pistons. Like if they lose Cade Cunningham, I don't want them to be like, oh crap, the season's over. There's nothing we can do. Shit. Well, I guess we're just better to start tanking for a draft pick. I don't want it to be that. I want if Cade Cunningham goes down, yeah, it makes the Pistons a little worse, but they're still good enough to compete and fight for a playoff spot.
Yeah, so I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and it's so funny that we're putting the Cavs in this conversation, because I remember if you had this conversation like 3 years ago, Cavs fans were just so miserable because they drafted Colin Sexton and then they drafted Darius Garland, and then there were jokes that they may draft another guard before they did eventually draft Evan Mobley. I think the way Kobe Altman has kind of rebuilt this team is different from how Memphis or Boston did it. I think the Cavs had cap space and they put themselves in trades where other teams that didn't have the cap space to help them out in a trade, like getting Karis LeVert, which I think Karis LeVert is a very good player, and I think that He's even kind of just a role player on that team. He's not like the main focal point of their team. Putting themselves in position to get a really good player in Jared Allen, who I still think is, the glue to that team. I think if they don't have Jared Allen, they're not a playoff team. Like, that's how highly I think of him. I think he's just defensively, he helps them out. He helps Evan Mobley. He's a really good rim runner. He protects the rim. I think Jared Allen is just a player that really makes that team go. But if I wanted to build a contender out of all those three teams, it has to be Memphis. And the reason why I'm going to say Memphis is because I look at Memphis and how quickly they turned around their team and how well they have drafted in both the first and the second round.
Yep.
Getting a Jaren Jackson Jr., who's a very good player, getting a franchise player in John Morant, finding players like Dylan Brooks, getting a Desmond Bane. I mean, they have done such a good job of just drafting, finding talent, evaluating talent, and getting a coach like Taylor Jenkins, who, in my opinion, is one of the best coaches in the NBA, and no one even talks about him. Like, nobody talks about Taylor Jenkins at all. Like, you have conversations with people, whether it's on Twitter Spaces or, you're just, talking hoops with people. People like Eric Spoelstra, Greg Popovich. No one says Taylor Jenkins. Like, Taylor Jenkins is a really good basketball coach. I love the way that Memphis has built their team into a contender. I think, to me, they're probably the model that the Pistons go after because they were more known for like their defense. Like, they don't play a lot of defense now, like under the John Morant era. But I mean, you remember those Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, Zach Randolph, like the grit and grind Grizzlies. Like, I think Pistons fans would love that type of direction, and I think that's what they're trying to get towards. They just haven't really found the right pieces to kind of, build a defensive-minded team yet, but I think they can do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I like them because they have built through the draft. I like when the teams build through the draft. Jaren Jackson Jr., John Morant, Dylan Brooks, Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark, John Concaire, Desmond Bane, Santi Aldama, Xavier Tillman Sr. All these guys were drafted by the Grizzlies that all play. Well, I mean, I don't know if they all play significant minutes, but I don't know about how hurt they are. But, Santi Aldama, he replaced Jaren Jackson Jr. at the beginning of the year. He played well. John Concaire, he's filled in for John Morant. He's played well. Dylan Brooks seemingly came out of nowhere. I mean, fucking Desmond Bane, we've already talked about him. He's probably the steal of the draft. And I love the way Memphis did it in their rebuild. I just love it. And that is like, I like the way they did. I like the way Cavaliers did it.
Yeah, Cavs did it. Cavs did it through trades, and I don't give teams credit when they have like a top 4, top 5 pick.
Yeah,
I just don't. I think Tayshaun Prince and the Memphis Grizzlies have done a phenomenal job at building to the draft, and it's so funny. Like, a lot of people don't even know that Tayshaun Prince is like a high level GM for Memphis. Like, people just don't know about it, and like he's done a really good job with the Memphis Grizzlies. I think that they're just a team where I look at them and I'm just like, dude, like, that's such a great basketball team to try to model. And you said Desmond Bane, and I cringe every time I hear his name because that podcast is recircled on my YouTube feed the other day of Detroit promising to draft him. They promised to draft him at 16, and they passed on him not once but twice.
Do you really think that they were that high? I mean, like, I don't understand how that happens when you promise a player like that. I mean, were they really that? Did they actually not expect Isaiah Stewart to be there or Saddiq Bey to be there?
I guess, like, the way he kind of articulated it was like, he was like, yeah, well, they promised me at 16 and then they draft Isaiah Stewart. He's like, so I think I'm going 19, and then they draft Saddiq Bey. And it's just like, man, like, I would have loved, like, can you imagine like a Killian, Desmond Bane, and Saddiq Bey, like, on one team? Like, that would be really interesting.
Oh my gosh, dude, I'm just looking at his numbers right now. Holy shit.
Yeah, he's killing it.
Yeah, he can play, dude. Wow. He can play. Holy crap. Good for him, man. Good for Memphis. Hell of a draft steal. I just don't get that with Detroit. Don't promise guys, man. Don't promise anybody.
They promised Donovan Mitchell they were going to draft him.
See, I don't even want to hear that, man. I don't even want to.
We do have another question from Banks. We do appreciate you guys dropping questions down below. KV. I'm so tired. Cade, Ivy, Bridges, Victor, Duran. What would y'all surround this core with in free agency if it ended up like this summer?
I would find. Ooh, that is tough. Who would I surround them with? I would try to find as many veterans as I possibly can. Like, mid-20s, early 30s veterans, some good guard play guys that are steady with the ball, some outside shooting, and then I would find some big man depth as well. I just don't want to say shooting. I would try to find as much experience I could to surround those guys. I think experience would be so valuable with that young of a team.
Yeah, I'm just looking at so that starting five would be Cade, Ivy, Bridges, Victor, Duran. How would I surround talent with that? I think I look at guys like I've mentioned it before. I think Kristaps Porzingis. Like if you were to land Victor, you probably don't go after Kristaps.
Yeah,
I don't think you do. But I think a bench piece you could surround them with is a guy like Kyle Kuzma, possibly. Maybe try to look at him because I think he's a guy that fits. I think you obviously still have Bogdanovich off the bench. You would still have Alec Burks. You would have Killian. I think what you would really be missing is just more vets that impact winning. And I think in this free agency class, there are a lot of veterans that you can go after that would complement each player you mentioned. I don't know what happens with Miles Bridges, though. I really don't. Like, we talked about this last podcast. I don't know if the Pistons will turn their cheek and try to sign Miles Bridges if Charlotte does decide to not re-sign him because he's still a restricted free agent. They haven't let that go. So it all depends on what Charlotte does and how all the felony cases against him, if they're dropped or what happens. Like we're gonna have to wait and see, but that would be a really interesting lineup. And I think if the Pistons had Cade and Victor on one team, like you're a playoff team. Like that's just crazy.
So for like big man, I would go I'll drop one name like Serge Ibaka. I think he would be a great veteran for these guys. A little bit older, 33 years old, can still play. You can tuck him in the corner. Then I would go after guys like Torrey Craig. You know what I'm saying? They don't need a lot of minutes, but even in lower minutes per game, they can still have an impact. A guy like Justice Winslow, guy doesn't need the ball, can affect you in different ways, whether it's playing defense, rebounding. He can play multiple positions too. Just guys like that where they know how to be pros. They're not going to be about themselves. They're going to try to come together and get just help this team win. That's what I'm looking for if I have a lineup like that.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to think about. I know I mentioned Cameron Johnson a couple podcasts ago. Like, I feel like that's a guy, like, if you were to go after him, you're probably spending a majority of your cap space in the summer just to add a Cameron Johnson. Because he literally declined an option from the Suns this past summer. So I think he's looking to get paid, and I think he will get paid handsomely.
Yeah, his contract they offered him, I think it was for like $66 to $70 million too, and he wants more.
Yep.
We'll
Hopefully
see.
He's not a Dennis Schroeder situation.
No, he's too tall to be in a Dennis Schroeder. If Dennis Schroeder was 6'5", that situation would have never happened. The fact that he was 6 foot, that's why it happened.
I can't believe he turned down $70 million from the Lakers, and he went to Boston for a minimum.
I can't believe how many people are like, he still won. He still got paid. You're like, no. He turned down a lot of money, and he got paid $6 million. And you're gonna try to justify that? No, just call Dennis Schroeder stupid because that's what he was. He should have taken the bag when he was offered.
So in that same article, when Jeff Fisher was talking about Saddiq Bey, I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but they were talking about the Utah Jazz and they were talking about the Atlanta Hawks. Apparently, Atlanta tried to swap John Collins for Lauri Markkanen, and the Jazz declined it.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because we were talking about John Collins as a possible trade candidate, and I don't really know what Danny Ainge and the Jazz are trying to do. Like, I get they want to be competitive, and they're the first seed right now in the Western Conference, but I just, like, you have draft picks. Like, I don't think you can have the same strategy as you had in Boston. I just don't think it'll work. Like, yeah, you have all this draft capital from Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, but eventually you're going to have to start trading away pieces that are helping you win. Like, I don't understand that. Rejecting a trade for, John Collins for Lauri Markkanen. Like, I get Lauri Markkanen is just playing out of his mind right now, and he's a way better shooter from the outside than John Collins is. But I found that really interesting that Utah didn't even want to entertain that.
I mean, it makes sense, though, because of, everything that's working with Lauri Markkanen at the 4. Like, if it wasn't working, that trade, it probably happens. Yeah, but I'm with you. I don't know what Utah is trying to do because that's not a team that wins a championship.
I feel like they're a team that I think they'd be content just making the playoffs. Like, I look at their team, like, I love Malik Beasley a lot. I think he's a really good shooting guard. Like, I was campaigning for the Pistons to actually sign him a few years ago before he had all the off-the-court stuff with Larissa Pimpin and then just, like, the arrest and the guns and all that other stuff. But I thought he would be a good – like, you look at the team, they have so many good role players that this contributes to winning, like Jordan Clarkson, Lauri Markkanen. Mike Conley's a good vet for them. Like, they're we're going to see them in a couple of minutes. That's who the Pistons are playing at 9 o'clock tonight. But it'll be interesting to see how they fare against them.
Yeah, but isn't it kind of funny that Utah can build this contender without Donovan Mitchell? Like, this is like the perfect team, but you need a guy that can take over. Because they don't have a guy like Jordan Clarkson's your best shot creator. And you traded your best one in Donovan Mitchell. Like, you built this great team, but now you don't have anybody to be the guy. Sucks. They messed up. I
don't think they're losing sleep over the trade. I think they got what they wanted.
Probably not, but you're a better team than you were last year.
Yeah, I think the reason why they're having so much success right now is because there's no egos and everyone can just play basketball.
That makes sense.
On any given night, someone could have 25 points. And I know some people I saw some Utah Jazz fan compare this Utah team to the 04 Pistons the other day. I know. I wanted to bring it up because I thought it was funny. Right?
Jeez.
I know. I was just like, bro, it's like every year we hear somebody compare themselves to the 04 Pistons. Like a couple of years ago, it was the Miami Heat.
Yep.
This year it's Utah. It's just like they're playing good basketball. I will give them that, but they're not even on the same tier as the 2004 Pistons.
Yeah, because the 04 Pistons were a fucking championship team. God, dude, make these comparisons after the team wins. Cool. You got 5 guys that average over 10 points per game. Oh, they're the 04 Pistons. Shut up. Are we saying the same thing about the Kings? No, we're not. Shut up. It takes more than just having 5 guys averaging double figures. Well, actually, the Pistons didn't even have that because they had Ben Wallace in the starting 5. But you know what I mean. Yeah. What makes the 04 Pistons unique versus every other team that wants to be like them, the 04 Pistons built that entire team around the best defensive player in the league. They didn't build that team around an offensive star. They built that around the defensive MVP in Ben Wallace. That is what makes the 04 Pistons unique, that they built that team around a fucking defensive player that couldn't average more than 9 points per game. That's what makes that team unique. No team in the current NBA or in the last 5 years has ever came close to building the 04 Detroit Pistons. It's never going to happen again. It's never going to happen again.
Not in the modern NBA right now. No,
There's
not with the contracts being the way that they are. Like I remember, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine because it's like he's just starting to watch basketball. Like he's a really big hockey fan, and he's like, why are there so many big contracts in the NBA? I was like, it didn't used to be like that. Like Kobe Bryant and maybe Kevin Garnett at the time were like the only two players that actually had like max deals at the time. Like if you remember, like Kobe was making like 30 million, and everyone was like, oh my God, that's so much money for one player. And now it's like a freaking role player makes 10 million now. It's crazy. But we do have an NBA draft question, and I know we're going to be talking about this guy until probably June because he's from Michigan. He did commit to Michigan State, and I think you know who I'm going to bring up, and that is Emoni Bates.
Son of a gun, dude.
I know. So this comes from Banks. Shout out to Banks. At pick 31, if Emoni Bates is still there, do y'all take a chance? Because I think he's going to be that. I think he's going to be there. This draft is loaded. You know what, Banks? I think he will be there in the second round, and I'm going to try to. I don't want to be a dick, but Emoni Bates to me is really good at scoring. And that's all he's good at right now. I think he's a really good scorer, and that you can't take that away from him. I think what will deter him from being a first-round pick isn't his numbers, isn't his playing style. It's three things. It's the off-the-court stuff that happened over the last 12 months. It's his measurables, and let me explain his measurables. You look at Emoni Bates, and I think he's, 6'7", 6'8", around there. He's got a 24.5-inch wingspan. Like, he's got a negative wingspan as a player. And so many NBA GMs are obsessed with measurables. Like, they're obsessed, like, Jalen Durham, for example, 6'10". He's got a 7'5" wingspan. I think Emoni Bates is talented, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think teams are going to take a flyer on him in the first round. He would have to just have a college basketball season where he's averaging 30 points for the rest of the year for teams to take him seriously in the first round, because there's just so much baggage there right now. Like, if he didn't have the baggage, then sure, we're having a different conversation. If he was playing at Michigan State right now and none of that stuff happened, with him getting money from Memphis, that's why he did leave Michigan State. Yeah, Tom Izzo would put him in a position where he's probably going to be a lottery pick. I mean, I think it's fair to say that Tom Izzo puts his players in really good position to get drafted. I mean, Michigan State has a lot of good basketball players in the NBA right now. I mean, whether it's Draymond Green, Gary Harris contributes, Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, there's just a lot of good players that came out of Michigan State and they contribute. But I just think for him, you're playing at Eastern Michigan where the competition isn't the strongest, and you're looking for your shot probably 70% of the time. Like, I've watched every Eastern Michigan game because I know a lot of Pistons fans are really locked in on Emoni Bates, and I understand it. You know, Michigan product, Michigan kid. You want to root for those kids. But, I mean, I think the Pistons could get him in the second round if they really wanted him. They can make a trade. Like, if he's there, like, around pick, 35 to 40, the Pistons want to trade up to get him, they could get him, or they'll be bad enough to where, they could draft him in the second round because they have the worst record in the NBA. But, I mean, I just don't think any NBA team in the first round will take a flyer on him. It's just that there's just so much question marks about him as a prospect right now.
Emoni Bates, there's this term I heard a long time ago. It's called the driveway basketball player, meaning they only know how to play by themselves and they don't know how to play in a team or play with the team. And that's Emoni Bates. I mean, my thing is, yeah, he can score the ball. I think he averaged like 42 points per game in 8th grade. It's unreal. The one thing I loved about Emoni Bates' game was, one, he doesn't need a lot of athleticism to get a shot off, and he knows where to pick his spots. That's what I loved about him in high school. Like, this was a kid that, like, he knew, like, he had these favorite spots on the floor, and he knew how to get there, and he knew how to get his shot off in those spots. I love that about Emoni Bates. but he's too stiff. He's not a fluid enough athlete. Like, I don't like, he kind of reminds me of LiAngelo Ball athletically. Like, LiAngelo Ball can't play on the perimeter in the NBA. I don't think Emoni Bates can either, even offensively. I don't see how Emoni Bates blows by anybody. I don't know how he's probably just a spot up shooter in the NBA at some point. Like, if I was Emoni Bates, that's where I would like be critiquing my game. I would watch guys, like, it might sound funny because Emoni Bates has been hyped up to be like this. Like, even some people are calling him the next Kevin Durant. He's not the next Kevin Durant. If I were him, I would be watching guys like Kyle Korver, like JJ Redick, like Duncan Robinson before his shooting percentage fell off, and learn how to get open without the ball and make myself valuable enough where I can get that shot off against the defense. Because if he has the ball in his hands, he's not going to be that good of a player. But if he can learn to play without the ball and get clean looks off, yeah, he'll probably make it in the NBA as a shooter. But as a franchise guy, as a go-to guy, there's no way he does that in the NBA. There's no way.
I was talking to a friend of mine who does, he's really into college basketball, and we'll have to have him on the podcast because he just does a really good job at covering the draft, sleepers, all that stuff.
Okay.
He was telling me, I'm looking at Emoni Bates, and he's like, don't laugh at me, but he plays so much like Adam Morrison.
That's a good name drop.
Yeah, and I'm like, so me being curious, because I do remember Adam Morrison in the NBA. I'm watching Adam Morrison tape, and then I'm watching Emoni Bates tape, and it's so similar, it's scary.
Yeah.
Like, Adam Morrison was a phenomenal college basketball player, and he got drafted really high. And he's probably one of the biggest busts in NBA history, up there with Darko Milicic.
He did average 13 points per game, though, his rookie year. The problem with Adam Morrison is his footwork was so bad. Like, if you watch him trying to come off a screen and then get tight, it's like he toe taps the entire time. It's like he doesn't know how to stop his feet. Like, his footwork was terrible, and Emoni Bates has terrible footwork. Like, when Kobe Bryant talked about that, like the small details in the game, like work on your footwork, blah, 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 I used to think he was crazy, but it is so true. There is something. Then I remember when Troy Weaver drafted Isaiah Stewart, and he's like, watch his feet, watch his footwork, watch his feet. The kid has beautiful feet when he moves. And I'm thinking, wow, yeah, there is a difference between some guys. Like, footwork does matter. It's the little details in things. And Emoni Bates, he just doesn't pay enough attention to that stuff.
All right, we'll do one more question, and then I want to go catch the Pistons Jazz game because I do want to watch it. Banks has just been giving us a lot of good content and a lot of good questions, so we do appreciate that. This actually is a question from the Pistons a couple of years ago. Question for y'all. When we had Reggie, Marcus, KCP, Drummond, Tobias, do y'all think Stan gave up on the team too fast? Because I thought we had the wrong coach for the squad.
Yes, I did. I loved that team, that Reggie, Marcus, KCP, Drummond, Tobias, because I thought they all played so well together. And, like, you didn't have a clear-cut number one, but you had any guy that could take that last second shot or be the number one guy for the night. I loved that squad, and yeah, the Pistons gave up way too early. It's almost like Tobias Harris hurt Stan Van Gundy's feelings, and he's like, "You're out of here. Fuck you. You don't make fun of me. Bye." I hated that trade. I hated when they broke that team up.
I think the biggest reason why that team failed was because Stan Van Gundy tried to force Andre Drummond into becoming the next Dwight Howard.
Yep.
Like, Andre Drummond at his peak shouldn't have been getting the amount of post touches that he was getting. Like, I think Andre Drummond, if he would just play a Clint Capella role during that time, I think the team would have been a lot further along. And I love the two-man game that Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond had.
Yep.
I thought KCP was coming into his own, and, it kind of hurt that when he didn't want to resign with us. And I thought that was kind of the downfall of that team. I thought that, when we traded Marcus Morris for Avery Bradley, that's when I knew the writing was on the wall and this team was going to, kind of get just blown up over the next couple of years. Like I used to have conversations with my friends. I was like, dude, they just need to blow it up and rebuild. Like in 2017, I was just like, there's no way. Like you can't. That core together played so well. Like there was just such a mismatch with Marcus Morris and Tobias Harris at your 3s and 4s where they just couldn't figure it out. And Drummond was just such a force in the pick and roll with Reggie Jackson. Like that team was so much fun. Like I legitimately thought we were going to beat the Cavs when we played them because we played them so well. Every game was close. I think except for one, they did blow us out by like 15. But I mean, that team was just so competitive. I think the city really got behind that team and they really felt it. And credit to Stan Van Gundy getting 44 wins. I thought that team was really going to take a leap that the following year, and it just didn't happen. But it's really sad to think about that. That's the most we've been hyped for a team probably in the last 10 seasons.
Well, it was a good team.
Yeah, that's how bad that we've been at just drafting players and, overpaying players in free agency. It's just...
I mean, dude, you're looking at this team, the first 6 guys in 2015, 2016, that 44-win team, Reggie Jackson, Tobias Harris, Andre Drummond, Caldwell Pope, Marcus Morris, and Ersan Ilyasova all averaged 11 or more points on that squad. Like, it was a good team, man. And then you had guys like Stanley Johnson, Aaron Baines, Anthony Tolliver that were just, they knew their roles. Like this team had a little bit of potential. I'm not saying a championship contender, but this was a competitive team that deserved a little bit more time together.
Imagine if you swap, because I've thought about this a lot, because it was almost a trade that happened, but it didn't happen. So they were talking about swapping Andre Drummond for DeMarcus Cousins when he was in Sacramento.
Why are we always in Sacramento?
Imagine if you swapped prime DeMarcus Cousins with all of those pieces around there.
You would have, oh, God, that would have been awesome. That would have been awesome. Ah, man. I don't even know what to say. That would have been great. That would have been a force in the Eastern Conference. That's a shame, dude.
Yeah, man. But I could go down memory lane with that team because that was the one team where I just thought that they were really close. I thought that team was like maybe a player or two away from competing in the playoffs and winning a playoff game. But thanks for taking me down depression, Banks. I appreciate it.
Banks, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for the questions, man. They were great. Seriously.
All right, you guys, but we do want to wrap this up. Pistons are playing the Utah Jazz. Lance, why don't you tell the people where they can find the podcast, how they can support it, and where to follow you on social media?
All right, thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk Podcast. Do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter at LanceCapRossi. Do me another favor. Follow my man Anthony at Pistons Talk across all social media platforms. Then go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe to the Pistons Talk Podcast. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, but more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.
Peace, guys.